I look in the streets and on the news, on the internet, everywhere that I look, I watch and I listen to everything around me. You know, not in a creepy kind of way, but in a, aware of my surroundings kind of way. It seems more than ever that envy and jealousy are so strong. They're causing so much division and so much strife everywhere that I look. Everyone is wanting what everyone else has. They don't seem to ever be satisfied with what they have and what they are capable of providing for themselves. It leads people to selfishly work for them to achieve all the goals that they think they want, all the things that they think they need. But what happens when you give up what you have now to work for what you want, for what you think you need? Well, what happens is that you end up losing what you already have. You end up not realizing what you do have. I mean, what you do have could be the most glorious thing in the world, and you don't give it the time of day because you think you want what that person has. And it's really, really sad. It's, to want things that you don't have and to work overtime to get them, spoiling what you do have. When in reality, if we could just be grateful and thankful for what we have right now and give God the glory for it all, we have what we need. And after all, God knows what we need, and He promises to always give us what we need. So we need to be grateful for what we have and thankful to God for it if we are to keep our eyes and thoughts on Jesus instead of on ourselves, which is where we truly wish our thoughts and our mind to be, on Jesus, instead of with our own selfish desires, which is where we all should want our attention to be, on Jesus. It shows that we are using God's wisdom the way that He intended for us to use it. James 3:16 and 17. For where envy and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure and then peaceable, gentle and easy to be treated and full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Envy and jealousy are truly very, very tough to get rid of, because we can end up feeling envy and jealousy over and over and over again without really meaning to. We can end up feeling that way simply by saying something like, I love your hair, it's so beautiful. I wish mine were like that. Mine is horrible. I can't stand it. Well, then you're putting yourself down and you're raising somebody else up, and not only are you doing that, but the way that you did it with envy and jealousy in your heart instead of giving her a compliment that you truly mean. Now, when we have that kind of jealousy and in our hearts, it's really simple to let it build and fester until it grows into this great big thing that it would have, should have, never have been in the first place, if we had been able to keep our thoughts in line with what God has for us, because we all have different things that God has intended for us. We are not the same, and life is not fair. He did not intend it to be fair. I don't know why He gives this one that and that one this, but it doesn't matter. He is God. He is the only one who truly needs to know. envy and jealousy have been around since the dawn of time. I mean, I believe envy and jealousy is what caused the downfall of Lucifer. I mean, isn't that why Satan fell? Because he let envy and jealousy rule every thought in his head, his soul, his mind, and his body until he was not satisfied with what he had, with what God had given him, even though he was the most beautiful angel. He was the smartest, the most talented. He was God's most trusted advisor. God loved him more than anybody else, and he still was not satisfied. He let the envy and the jealousy of what God was and had overtake who he was, which is really sad. It really, truly is sad. But that is what he did, and because of his prideful thoughts over envy and jealousy, he fell from God's grace and was thrown out of heaven forever. And you can find that story in Ezekiel 28, 12 through 15, and Isaiah 14, 12 and 5. We are not going to go there for the sake of time, but you will find that story there. When we think about Satan, he wasn't the only one who had problems with envy and jealousy. Seems like Adam and Eve probably had a little bit of trouble with envy and jealousy because they ended up going against God's wishes and ate the fruit of the tree that God had asked them not to eat. And why? Why did Eve do that? She did that because the devil made her believe that instead of God trying to keep something harmful away from them, he was trying to keep something that would make them godlike away from them. So he planted a seed, and that seed made her think and think and think and think about it until she had convinced herself that, or that the devil had convinced her that she had to eat the apple, that the apple was good for her, and she wanted to be like God, so she ate the apple in spite of what God had told her. And then that wasn't good enough for her. She had to go and entice her husband to do the same, and he did, unfortunately. And well, here we are today because of it, because they wanted more than they were given. And let's face it, guys, they were given heaven on earth, or heaven in heaven. I mean, they were in the Garden of Eden. It was heavenly. They had nothing to worry about. I mean, when I think of heaven, that is what I think of, the Garden of Eden. To be truthful, it is. My picture of what the garden is, like in the center of, you know, the rest of the outrageous, glorious place I have pictured in my head. But when Adam and Eve did what they did, they caused the fall of humanity, and we have been trying to get back ever since. And God never intended them to eat the apple, not because he didn't want them to have the knowledge that they would get, but because the knowledge creates a place for good and evil to be. And they did not want them to have to deal with good and evil. They wanted them only to have good. It's too bad that Adam and Eve didn't know that part. You will find this story in Genesis 3, 1 through 7. And again, I'm not going to go there because of time. But, you know, when Adam and Eve, after they ate the apple, what happened to them? The first thing that happened to them was they felt resentful, shame. They regretted their decision to bite the apple because for the first time since they had been created, they realized that they stood before each other and God himself naked. And until then, they didn't even know what naked meant. So right off the bat, they ended up feeling evil, which is what God intended for them never to feel. And then when we take a look at the story of Cain and Abel, Cain and Abel were Adam and Eve's sons. Cain, a tiller of the ground, and Abel, a keeper of the sheep. Cain struggled with feelings of envy for his brother. He was never satisfied with what he had or even who he was. One day Cain brought the Lord an offering. It was the first fruits from the ground he cared for. And his brother Abel also brought an offering to the Lord. It was the firstlings of his sheep and the fat of it. And Cain was so thrilled that day because he was absolutely sure that he was going to get the respect of God for his offering, because he knew his offering was better than his brother's. And he was so glad that he was going to finally beat his brother out at something. So when they came in front of God and God inspected the offerings, he did not give his respect to Cain. He gave his respect to Abel. And I don't think that it was because Abel's offering was better than Cain's. I think it was because God knew about how Cain was feeling towards his brother inside his heart, in his mind and his soul, and in his heart. And it horrified him. He felt all the anger and all the hatred that Cain had for his brother. And when God chose Abel's gift over Cain's, God felt Cain's countenance fall. And he turned to Cain and he asked Cain why his countenance had fallen and why he seemed angry all of a sudden. And the reason why was because he was not picked, and he was very, very angry that he wasn't picked, and he didn't understand why he wasn't picked. One day, though, shortly thereafter, Cain and Abel were in a field talking, and Cain had let this boil and fester and grow the entire time from the day that it happened until they were in this field, and he just couldn't get over it. He just could not do it. He could not forgive Abel. It didn't matter what anyone said or what anyone did, he just could not forgive him. So this day in the field, he was going to make Abel pay. And he picked up something, I'm not sure what it was, and I think it was a sword, and he slew, not a sword, I think it was a stone, and he hit him with it. And he slew him, he killed him. And it was horrible. Immediately God felt it and cried out over the land and asked Cain what he had done to his brother, because he felt his brother's blood in the earth, and he wanted to know what had happened. It's just amazing what people will do because of jealousy and envy. It's amazing where we can go from, I wish my hair was like that, it's better than mine, I don't like it, to killing somebody, especially a brother or a sister. How could anyone do that? You'll find this story in Genesis 4:3-8. So, as we see by the story of Cain and Abel, if we allow envy and jealousy to rule our lives, it can very easily be the end of us. Very, very easily. So, it can start when we're young, too. You know, it doesn't have an age limit. It doesn't care how old we are, what job we have. It just, envy and jealousy will just be there to tear you apart if you let them. The only thing that I know of that will help children who are growing up to stay out of jealousy and envy and to grow strong is to have strong parents who are strong not only in their stature but also in their belief for God. They must know who God is, who they are in Him, and who they can be in the world, and they need to be able to teach it to their kids. The kids need to be able to hear stories about Jesus along with hearing the Bible. It's so important that they understand the Word, and even if they don't understand every single word, they will understand the meaning if they hear it over and over and over again. It will get into their hearts and their heads, and it will help guide them to become whoever they're going to be, just as, doing nothing, letting your kids grow up by raising themselves, and, parents doing drugs and alcohol and whatever. It's the same thing. The kids are either going to grow up being the way they were raised that way, or being the way they were raised in the Lord. Some kids, yes, are very lucky, and they end up meeting someone who brings them to the Lord, or they find the Lord when they get older. But if we could all just bring our children up in the knowledge of Jesus Christ, just the basics, to give them the strength that they will need to fight the good fight of faith throughout their lives, they will have a much, much easier life. I remember when I was a little girl, I must have been about 5 because I had just started kindergarten, and I remember how hard it was for me. It was so very hard for me because I was so shy. I mean, it was beyond being shy. It was debilitating. It truly was. In fact, the school, my teacher and the principal got together with me and my parents, and they had me sit on this little rug like I couldn't hear them and know exactly what they were saying. But they acted like I couldn't. And they talked about me. And they wanted to kick me out of school. They told my parents that my shyness was beyond a normal thing, that it was not only debilitating for me, it was debilitating for the other kids who had to slow down their learning so that they could try to get me involved. They said that I was so afraid to talk to anybody that I would cry, and they just didn't have the time or the patience or the knowledge or skills to have me in the class, and that maybe they should think about having me tested for mental retardation. I remember when they said that, and I was completely taken back. Yes, I was shy, but I was not dumb. and I understood everything they said, and it only made things worse for me. My mom and dad, though, they knew that I wasn't that way, because when I'm home, I'm not a shy, insecure little kid. I'm a normal kid, and they can see who I am and what I'm capable of. And they fought for me to stay in school because they believed that I just needed somebody to care about me, to show some interest in me. And I stayed in school. It wasn't necessarily a good place for me, but I got through it. And I got through it because I had a knowledge and a belief in God. And even back then, I talked to God like he was my best friend, because I didn't have very many people, you know, and everybody always said you're supposed to pray and talk to God. So God was my best friend. He was all I knew. And that's what I did. Me and God, we'd go for walks and we'd ride bikes, you know. It was lonely, but I was healthy. I was more healthy than a lot of people a lot of my friends that I saw out there. Well, I was so excited one day because that Friday was picture day, and my brothers and sister had their school pictures hung up on the wall, and I waited a long time to get my picture on that wall. My oldest sister was 7 years older than me, and my older brother 5 years older than me. So I waited 5 years to have my picture up there, and nobody's picture got on that wall unless they got it there by going to school. So I was very excited. But as it would happen, my parents had to go do something that evening, which was not a normal thing for them to do, at least not without us. And so they called in a neighborhood kid. She lived, you know, a few houses down. And while she was there, my mom had asked her to brush my hair and put it in a ponytail. I had gorgeous, gorgeous hair. It had never been cut. It was probably down to my knees. And she put it up at night so that it wasn't so hard in the morning to, you know, brush out. Well, my babysitter ended up having an argument with her boyfriend on the phone about another girl, and when she started brushing my hair, she started telling me how beautiful my hair was and how much she wished her hair was like mine. Her hair was very short, and she, for whatever reason, had a difficult time growing it. So the longer she brushed my hair, the angrier her words became. And it got to the point where she had made herself so angry that she said to me, "Your hair is too beautiful for anyone like you to have, so I'm going to make sure nobody ever does." And she had my ponytail up like this, and she clipped it. It wasn't even down like this. It was up like this at the top of my head, and she cut it off. And she said, I started screaming, "My hair, my hair." And she said, "You want it? Go fish for it." And she threw it in the toilet and flushed it. I was beyond devastated. I was beyond devastated. I didn't know if I was ever gonna make it. I thought I was gonna pass out and die right there. Then my mom and dad came home and they saw the hair hanging out of the toilet, and my mom just she started screaming. I thought she was gonna have a heart attack. She of course came after me because she thought I had done it, and she had a spatula, in her hand. And she ran, she ran up. I can't believe you did this. And my brothers and my sisters, Mom, she didn't do it. She didn't do it. And then she's like, well, who did it then? Well, they swung their butts right over to the neighbor's house and they had it out. Needless to say, we never had that babysitter again. But my beautiful hair was gone, and for the next few years, my school pictures were horrible because my hair was so short that it could not be fixed. So I had to wait years for it to be grown out. But instead of me being so angry over it, I guess I just forgave her. I didn't think about it. She told me she was sorry. I said, it's okay, don't worry about it, and I never thought about it again. And she never came over again, but it's not like I let it, build and fester into something inside of me. I didn't do that. But, we let envy and jealousy fester up and become something that it should never be when we are jealous and when we envy people. Those are one of two of the hardest things, I think, for us to deal with. And the words that we say when we are jealous and when we are angry matter. They matter greatly. So, the power that our words have is amazing. I mean, you can bring miracles to happen with the power of your mouth. By praying to God, you can bring a miracle into being. I did by praying to God and by believing that He would keep His word. I don't know why I said that, but anyway, Proverbs 18, 20, and 21. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruits of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips he shall be filled. Death and life are the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. So all that means is that, you better mean what you say, because what you say can come to pass very easily. Our words have power. If we want something to happen, speaking it into being is a very, very easy thing to do if you have the belief and the faith to back it up with. Just as the days of the past, the sin and the envy and the jealousy are all still running strong in today's society, and probably just as much, if not more than they were back then. I don't know, I hate to see what a world would be like worse than it is today. With social media the way that it is, and I mean, you can't even watch TV without soft porn being thrown in your faces, even on primetime TV. You can't watch commercials anymore with your kids because they have soft porn in the commercials and sexual things that should not be there. The children are on TV during these hours, and it just should not be. It never used to be, and it shouldn't be now. And this is just something that we have long kept our mouths shut about. And it's time for us to wake up, stand up, and speak up, because nothing's ever going to change if we sit on our blessed assurance back here and never do a thing about anything. It just isn't going to help. And I don't know, I think it's time for us to stand up and say something. Our children need to be able to sit down and watch TV without us having to worry about whether the children on the show that they're watching are going to end up in bed together, because it happens more times than not. And it's horrible. I saw in a study on the internet that said 1 in 3 people are affected negatively by their time on social media. If you think that jealousy and envy were a problem before, try expanding that by billions and billions and billions of people, because now, at the same moment, you could have billions and billions of people looking at the same thing, causing the same kind of hurt feelings and jealousy and anger and strife and all those negative things. It's just so much easier for people to see this. So 1 in 3 people are affected negatively by their time on social media, and for young adults, it's between the ages of 12 and 18 that they have more of a hard time with social media. If we envy someone and if somebody who is very young starts to envy somebody, starts to feel jealous about them, and starts to speak horribly about that person because of the way that they feel, we need to be able to step up and talk to that child and try to make it understand what is really going on and why it's not okay for them to feel this way. We need to talk to our kids and our grandkids and make them understand that this is not how they're meant to feel. This is not who they were meant to be. And if we can just all do that, this place would be so much better. There are 2 ways to experience envy and jealousy that I know of. One is to be envious and jealous, and the other is to have somebody envious and jealous over you. I can safely say that we've probably all experienced both sides of envy and jealousy. And either way, it's an unpleasant experience. Envy is a spirit we unleash when we give in to evil thoughts, selfish thoughts. Like, why are they always the ones who get picked? Why can't that happen for me? Why do they think they are better than me? Wow, they must think they're God or something. I mean, when we start talking like this over anything, it's bad. But if we start talking like this because we are experiencing envy and jealousy, we need to be able to take a step back and realize that those feelings are showing me that there is something wrong inside of me, inside of my heart, inside of my head, inside of my soul, not theirs. Jealousy, anger, envy, all of those things, those are evil things. Those, envy and jealousy, what do they do? They want to bring in a spirit of sin and death. That's basically what it does. And what is sin and death? Sin and death is Satan. Satan is the one who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He is the one who came into the world and made sin an issue again. I know to beat the devil, we can do it. We can do it simply by standing up and saying a prayer to get rid of him. He is easily gotten rid of if we are speaking and believing in the Word of God. And the only way I know to beat the devil is with a prayer, and by putting on the full armor of God, so that when we're beating the devil down with our words, he can't fight back with his powers at our body. Our full armor is on, and he cannot penetrate once we have done that. The power that God has given to each and every one of us when we put on the full armor of God is indescribable. God cannot be beat. And if we are in the full armor of God, we cannot be beat. Ephesians 6:10 through 13. Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wills of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. It is through Jesus that we can find the freedom we seek. The freedom from the devil, the freedom from our thoughts, the freedom from sickness, disease, the freedom from all sin and all death. And we can learn to love with the love of God. The same love that he loves us so freely with, that he gave his only begotten Son so freely, so that we might have a chance to come and have an eternal life in him and through him. He has done everything that he can do for us. Now it is up to us to believe in what he has done for us, and to do it in love. Love is the only way this world is ever going to work. Any world is ever going to work. If we do not have love, we do not have anything. 1 John 4:7 through 11. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. In this, the love of God was manifested toward us, that God has sent his only begotten Son into the world, that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. Amen.